Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Wanted to get one final mock draft in the books here, so I guess this is my official prediction for how the first round will go. Fernando Mendoza is the first pick, as we can guess. The Jets are on the clock now at number 2. Now, they canceled their meeting with David Bailey, which apparently means that they want to draft him. I'm not quite clear on what sense that makes. To me, if they canceled the meeting, that's not. That seems like maybe they're settled on another player, but I'm going to trust what the media is saying here. I'm going to go with David Bailey, which means that for the Cardinals, I think Arvel Reese being there makes things a lot easier for them. So they're not going to have to choose between. I think a right tackle would be good here. I love Maui Noah going to them, but Arvel Reese is the best player with the most potential on the board, in my opinion. And then we're going to go Jeremiah Love for the Titans, simply because if we don't pick Jeremiah Love to the Titans, we have no idea what the Titans are going to do. And they could go in basically any direction. And I do think there's a lot of smoke here in terms of they're getting a new stadium. Ownership is a little wacky. Great way to sell tickets is to get a star offensive player. That's what Jeremiah Love is. Maybe not my recommended pick for the Titans, but I think they will go in that direction. Since the Giants have traded with the Bengals, they now have picks number 5 and 10. The word is they are enamored with the Ohio State players and the wide receivers, which I know there's some intersectionality there. They're also supposedly interested in boning up in the trenches. Now, you can't get all those things with 1 or 2 picks, right? So I'm forced to figure out what players they like the best here. I don't think any of the receivers are worth this pick. I think Carnell Tate could go in this range, but I don't know if any of the receivers are worth this pick. Sonny Styles might be. Caleb Downs might be. These are the 2 players I'm considering here, even though I'd like to give them a receiver. They could jump ahead of the pack and just pick their favorite receiver and know that they're getting their favorite or whoever they deem the best one. I'm going to go Sonny Styles here because I've heard a lot about Harbaugh liking the spine of the defense. I think Sonny Styles is going to go a little too high, quite frankly. I love him falling down to the Cowboys at 12, but it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. Teams value that workout a lot, and I get it. And the player does look great. So Styles to the Giants. Now, the Browns are on the clock. They want to trade out of this pick. I've had them trading out with the Cowboys. I think that's a trade that could happen if the right players are available. We'll just pretend that Jerry Jones loves Sonny Styles. And now that he's gone, there's no reason to trade up. So I also really, really question how much teams are going to trade up on Thursday. You never know. It always never ends up the way that you think. It's just the teams that are coming up for players, I just don't know what they're going to give up. So I find it unlikely, but still possible that there will be a few trade-ups. Regardless, the Browns are now in this position where players like Reuben Bain are still on the board, Caleb Downs, and people are starting to wonder if the Browns could go defense here. I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to keep it chalk, and I am going to go Carnell Tate. I think the Browns they need juice in pass protection. They need juice in pass receiving. I think Carnell Tate, maybe not the flashiest pick here, but he might be the best receiver in the class, and it gives Cleveland something to fill in a spot on their depth chart they desperately need. Now, Washington is up next. I love giving them a receiver. I would go Mekhi Lemon here, personally. Reuben Bain is on the board. That's got to be an attractive choice. Mansour Delane and Jermod McCoy, the top 2 corners. I think I might stick with receiver here simply because I think there might be better players on the board. But Washington did a lot to address their defense, and they just have almost nothing at receiver. Outside of Terry McLaurin, they have more or less nothing. So let's go Mekhi Lemon here. Now, the Saints are a team that I think could always be going best player available. They have a pretty decent team, but they could use a lot of star players. So Let's go Ruben Bain here. Arguably the best player on the board. I would say Downs is second. But let's go Bain. Now we have the Chiefs at number 9. Apparently their fans hate when you draft a corner at 9 because I guess they develop their own corners really well, which they've done in the past. Does that mean they'll do it again? I think that's far from certain. I think they could definitely go corner here and replenish that group. They lost their top 2 corners who were pretty good players. They both went to the Rams. So I know they can develop their own. I know they have guys in-house that they like. Doesn't mean that they're going to develop those guys. I mean, you can only get so much out of certain players. It's not like it's not like you just flip a switch and some people can coach these guys up and some people can't. Often that's the case. Often it's just the guy's either got it or he doesn't. So this is a tough choice. I'll go Caleb Downs here simply because best player on the board possibly. And the Chiefs do need defensive backs. This kind of splits the difference. And we'll go to the Giants with their second pick. At number 10, they chose Sonny Styles. I love Maui Noa here as a road grader and a tackle or guard option depending on what they need. He has some flexibility there. Fano provides that as well. Ioane is the best interior offensive lineman in the class. I think if they wanted to go O-line here, they could. They're also enamored with Jordan Tyson, supposedly. That's where I'm going to go here. I'm going to go Tyson. I've just heard way too many times that they're really into Tyson and Tate. So we'll go with Tyson there. Now, the Dolphins, I really think, I mean, you can use just about anything here. They could use someone along the offensive line. A corner, certainly. All of the top 3 receivers are gone, so I don't know if I would use a pick on a receiver at this point in the draft. We'll go with Maui Noa here because you go trenches, which is never a bad thing. They could use a corner, but they can get corners later. And this just accentuates the one thing they do have on offense, with it, which is Devon Achane. And if you build that offensive line, you have a good starting point for adding more players, which they obviously intend to do. Now the Cowboys are up. They have the best corner on the board, Dylan Thieneman. Some good tackles, a good guard, another good corner. I'm going to go Jermod McCoy here. I don't know if this could definitely happen as far as McCoy going ahead of Delane. I'm going to do it here just because I don't see why it couldn't happen. I mean, I think if McCoy played last year and he even just had an average year, I think teams would still be talking themselves into him as the best corner on the board. Okay, so the Rams, they have the best corner on the board. They don't really need a corner at the moment. They've got too many. They've got too many tight ends, so I won't go tight end here. I don't think fans like when you go tackle here. But I think a player like Fano, who can kind of do a little bit of everything, he can play guard or tackle, and I like this just because it keeps their offensive line moving forward if they incur an injury or two. It's not going to stop them on the way to a Super Bowl run, which is what they're trying to do. So we can't get a receiver right now that I think justifies this pick. I think Fano does. Given that we don't need corners, let's go Fano, and then that bolsters that Rams offensive line. Now we're up to the Ravens. There's been a lot of talk about how they could really use a corner, and Mansour Delane is still there. Vega Ioane is still there. A corner does make sense. Someone described their corner room, and they're like one injury away from starting some really bad corners. But I just think my hot-ish take on the Ravens is that their window has basically closed. Now, they could have one more big year just because the talent on the team, the high-end talent like Lamar and Derrick Henry, is undeniable. But I think the team is falling apart. I think their window has closed. No one wants to say it yet because it's only been 1 year. But I think Vega Ioane at least gives them a chance to let Derrick Henry run through some huge holes, let Lamar run as much as he still can run, and make the best of it. So the chalk pick of Ioane, I think, was always a good one for the Ravens, and I'm going to do that here. So now we're up to the Bucks, and we have a great corner on the board. I'm going to make a pick that a lot of people aren't going to make, and that is Zion Young to the Bucks. The reason I'm making this pick is because I know you can't just go by the top 30 visits of teams, but I didn't see them bring any corners in, so I thought maybe they weren't interested in corners this year for one reason or another. And Zion Young was a guy that they did bring in. They also brought in Malachi Lawrence, who has gotten a little bit of first-round buzz. I've heard a lot more buzz around Zion Young than Malachi Lawrence, so that's why I picked Zion Young. And also, the Bucks are bringing in players that I think are projected to go around the end of the first round. So that tells me that maybe they think these guys are worthy of the 15th overall pick. And I think the Bucks have done this before, where they've made picks that were slightly off everyone's board, but everyone still respected them. So I'm going to go Zion Young here. That's going to be my big scorching hot take. And that leaves the Jets, who have already picked David Bailey. I'm going to go Mansour Delane here. And that's just because he's the best player on the board. I don't think the Jets would expect him to be here, and they could really use a corner. So we still need to get receiver help for Garrett Wilson to keep his sanity, but I think we can still get that later in the draft. The Lions are up at 17. This is a team I've said since my last draft. I think they're going offensive line no matter what. I think they could use an edge rusher. They could use secondary. I don't think they're going to do that, though. I think they're going to get someone on the offensive line. The word has been Caden Proctor. Past one beat reporter saying that. I don't think there's any other smoke around it. That's what I'm going to go with, though, because there's a lot of quality tackle prospects in this range. And I don't know which one they're going to pick, so I will go with Caden Proctor, because that was the one that I did see that was reported. Now we're up to the Vikings, and the chalk pick for the Vikings has always been Thieneman, because they're probably going to need a safety with Harrison Smith getting really old or maybe even retiring. And I think it fits, honestly. You can get cute here and give them a receiver or Kenyon Sadiq potentially. I've seen defensive interior mocked here. I think it's too early. There's just been way too much talk about those defensive interior guys not being super coveted players this year. So I'm going to go with Thieneman. I think that locks in as a nice pick for the Vikings, which is why everyone's been making it. I do tend to go chalk sometimes just because in a year like this, I mean, we just really don't know what's going to happen, right? So you're just grasping onto any bit of information that you can find. Another team that's given me problems is the Panthers. I really can't figure out what they're going to do. They could use a receiver. Concepcion has popped up recently. You never know if these hype trains are for the player from scouts and whatnot, or if the agent is just filtering information through different sources. Concepcion, it doesn't seem like he's a player that a lot of people like for a top 25 pick. However, he's gaining some momentum. I like him for the Panthers. People have explained how he complements Teteroa McMillan. They could also go Sadiq here, but my thing with Sadiq going to the Panthers is I don't know if there's been a lot of actual smoke there or reasoning other than he's a cool player and the Panthers could use another pass catcher. I'm going to go with Concepcion here. It's just my feeling. I think his ball skills do worry me. I mean, I think that's a bad sign for a prospect. But the dude is fast. He's pretty electric. Complements McMillan well, like I said. And, just a really fun player that could ignite that Panthers offense. So we're up with the Cowboys again at 20. Jermod McCoy is off the board. So we've got a corner in-house. Mesidor is a popular pick here. C.J. Allen used to be a popular pick. Nobody puts him in the top 30 anymore, or the first round. I wonder if he's going to go in the first round all of a sudden, because, we forget about some of these players. But I really think that the Cowboys could go offensive line. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're certain that they want to load up on defense, which is fine. I'll go with Mesidor here. He provides some instant pass rush help, or at least that's the theory. I think people are way too assuming. They're assuming way too much that since Mesidor is old, as in, he'll be 25 next season, just because he's old, that means he's like a finished product and he'll come in and he's going to get you some sacks and pressures right away. That's not necessarily always the case, but we'll see. For the Steelers, we can go offensive line here. The Steelers arguably need a tackle. You can move Fautanu to left or keep him at right and draft a left tackle. So you can pretty much pick either one. They also need safety. They could use a corner. They could use a receiver for the future. So they could use a linebacker. So there's some holes here for sure. I don't know if they're going to go with Monroe Freeling. I haven't seen the interest there. Omar Cooper I like. They've been sniffing around the receivers. I'm going to do that here. Another thing to keep an eye on is that the Steelers also need a starting guard, like right now. If Vega Ioane falls to them, I think it's an automatic choice for the Steelers. But keep in mind, if you watch day 2, the Steelers are going to have to get a guard at day 2 at the very latest. So keep an eye out for that. If there's a guard that's worthy of this pick, I think they would make it, but there isn't in this case. Now the Chargers are up, and interior line on both sides of the ball seems to be their biggest need. That's not really the direction they went in with their visits, but that's the direction I'm going to go. It's really just about, do I want Caden McDonald or do I want Peter Woods? Because I think Peter Woods has fallen off a little bit. This is one of those guys, I think he goes in the first round, and everyone's like, oh yeah, we forgot about Peter Woods. So I'm going to put him right there. Eagles. Offensive and defensive line, take your pick. Again, another team where all of a sudden their lines are falling apart. The Ravens and the Eagles are kind of in the same boat. In that regard, the Eagles could still go all over the place here. Monroe Freeling is a left tackle prospect. Sadiq, they might need another tight end in a year. McNeil Warren, they need a safety. They need pass rushers if you want to give them a pass rusher. You can give them a right tackle. I'm going to go with, I'll go with Blake Miller here. He's a right tackle prospect, could potentially move inside, and I think that just helps them rebuild that offensive line, get some much-needed depth there. They were really decimated last year, and it really affected their offense. Okay, the Browns are up at 24. They picked Carnell Tate. Now we don't have to worry about taking a receiver that we don't necessarily want and reaching at this point in the draft. We've got a receiver. Now we can kind of take our pick. Freeling is our developmental left tackle prospect that could be a stud. We can take something to replenish the defense. I've been talking a lot lately about how if you take Myles Garrett out of that defense, I mean, all of a sudden they have a ton of needs that you think they might be able to use and players on defense they could choose in the draft. I'm not necessarily going to do that here, but let's see what talent we could get. I think Freeling has to be the pick. I mean, he's an ascending player that people think is just reaching his apex. He could be the left tackle of the future. That a lot of people think that's highly possible. So, with a haul of Carnell Tate and Monroe Freeling, I think that's a good first round for the Browns. The Bears are up next. Emmanuel McNeil Warren, a safety they could use. I also like giving them Caden McDonald here just because it's something that they did lose safeties, at least one safety, if not two. And so they could really replenish that. In the middle of the defensive line seems to be a concern. I really want to give them McDonald. McNeil Warren, I just love that play. I'm going to give him Caden McDonald. We're going to eat our vegetables a little bit here. Now we've got the Bills, who I really usually give them Casey Concepcion. Denzel Boston is a possibility. I just think they could use speed as opposed to like a big lumbering jump ball guy. So I'm not going to give them Boston. If Concepcion was here, I would give them Concepcion. But we could use a linebacker, we could use a guard or a safety. I'm just going by their visits don't really give us any indication, so we got to make a pick here. And we'll go Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Fills a safety spot for them, and a player that I think, after a year or two goes by, people could be saying this dude is a baller and shouldn't have fell quite this far. I think that's a possibility with him. So San Francisco's up. We've got Kenyon Sadiq, which is a very attractive pick. We also need to replenish the offensive line eventually. I don't know if there are left tackle prospects here that are attractive at this spot. So we might engineer a trade with the Cardinals here. Let's see if we can make that happen. They don't want to trade up, so we're going to have to just figure this out. 34 and 27. I usually make this pretty simple. 34 and 27. 104 this year, third rounder next year. Boom. You can arrange that however you want if you disagree with me. But the Cardinals are on the clock. We're going to take Ty Simpson, get that fifth-year option. I think somebody's going to trade with the Cardinals to do this. I don't know who. So the Cardinals, they start the draft with, where are we here? Arvell Reese. And now they have Ty Simpson. I think that's a great haul and a great start to new beginnings for the Cardinals. New beginnings yet again for the Cardinals, but hopefully it'll work this time. Okay, we've got the Texans up, who could use a guard or a center in defensive interior, which I just don't know if defensive interior is that important to them at this stage. I do think a guy that's been getting a lot of buzz is Pregnon, the guard from Oregon, but I think this seems a little rich for him. Maybe not, but can we find someone on the interior? I'm a fan of drafting. I still think they could use a tackle. They've got Blake Fisher, who's whatever. They've got a rookie. They've got a rookie from last year who had an injury that they're hoping can come into his own. And then they've got Braden Smith, who is a decent player. I guess they don't super need a tackle, so we won't go there. I'm a little confused about this selection, though, just because you can go defense and just keep pouring on defense. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's actually what I'm going to do here. And I'm going to give them TJ Parker, another player that I think Clemson had a bad year. These guys have been falling down the board just because they didn't have their greatest season. I think that could be the pick here, though. There's nothing wrong with bolstering a strength, which is what the Texans are doing there. For the Chiefs, now we've got Caleb Downs. Kenyon Sadiq is kind of a gift that's still sitting there. This happens with me, though, in some of my mocks. Sadiq just happens to drop. I'll take him here at pick 29 for the Chiefs. So they come away with Caleb Downs and Kenyon Sadiq, a successor to Travis Kelce potentially, and just another pass catcher, which they could definitely use. I think that's a solid haul. The Dolphins are up. Francis Mauigoa, fortify those offensive line trenches. Now, they still need corners, and we still haven't given them a corner. They need a receiver, and we still haven't given them a receiver. Let's see. We pick again at 43. I don't think we can wait, though. What kind of corners are we looking at 43? I still see 3 or 4 good corners here. This is a little risky because their defensive back room is freaking terrible. I'm going to go Boston here, though, just because they've kind of created this problem with the receivers now that they don't even have Waddle. So now you get Mauigoa and you get Denzel Boston. You still have Achane. That gives Malik Willis something to work with. So you can at least see what he's got. And maybe you even win a few games. Who knows? The Patriots are on the clock. I'm going to go with, Max Ionichor. I know they met with him. Vrabel was hitting the pads with them and doing all those things. I also like Malachi Lawrence for them. They brought him in. They brought in Ionichor. That would be their right tackle for the future. They have Morgan Moses right now. He's not getting any older. They will need to fortify that spot. They also brought in a lot of edge rushers, guys. That's why I'm not making the Yanachor pick right away, because I've mocked Malachi Lawrence to them because they really need a pass rusher on that other side. I'm going to go with the Yanachor. He's typically the higher rated player, and I think they're both needs for the Patriots. So I'll go Yanachor there. And then lastly, we have the Seahawks, who I believe need a pass rusher. I honestly like giving them a corner here. Usually I have to give them Chris Johnson. I'm going to give them Colton Hood this time. And then that'll be that. So for the first round, we've got... I'll recap it for you here. I don't feel spectacular about this mock. I did one the other day that I thought was perfect. This one didn't quite work out that way, but I'll use this as my final mock. Mendoza to the Raiders at 1. Bailey to the Jets at 2. Arvell Reese goes to the Cardinals at 3. Jeremiah Love, running back, goes to the Titans at 4. Sonny Styles to the Giants at 5. Carnell Tate to the Browns at 6. Makai Lemon to the Commanders at 7. Reuben Bain to the Saints at 8. 9. Caleb Downs to the Chiefs. 10. Jordan Tyson to the Giants. And the Giants, so the highlights of the first 10 picks, the Giants come away with Styles and Jordan Tyson. A scenario I think could definitely play out depending on who's available. And then the Chiefs in this round get Downs and Sadiq, like we mentioned. So interesting choices here. The first 3 picks are going to determine so much of this draft. It's crazy. But the 11 to 20 picks, the Dolphins chose Francis Maui-Noah at 11. Jermod McCoy to the Cowboys at 12. The Rams take Spencer Fano, tackle from Utah, at 13. Vega Ioane, the guard from Penn State, at 14 to the Baltimore Ravens. Zion Young to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was my one really off the board pick, including Mansour Delane at 16 to the Jets. I don't know if he's going to last that long, but he does in this mock. You know somebody's got to fall. We went chalk, Caden Proctor to the Lions. That's what we've been hearing, so that's what we went with. Thieneman to the Vikings, more chalk, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Concepcion, the receiver from Texas A&M, goes to the Panthers at 19. I think that's a pick that could surprise some people. I've seen it here and there. It's a little rich for me. I don't like that player nearly as much, but maybe the Panthers do. Some people seem to think so. Akeem Mesidor to the Cowboys gives them some pass rush juice that they were sorely missing. And then they come out of this round with a corner and a pass rusher, so you hope that the Cowboys' defense is back on its way up. The Steelers take Omar Cooper Jr. This is a pick that I'm a pretty big fan of for the Steelers. They have Michael Pittman and DK Metcalf. They're both going to be 29 years old after this season. They're going to need a receiver. Omar Cooper Jr., a guy that's been generating a ton of buzz in draft circles. Peter Woods to the Chargers at 22. This was just a hunch on my part. I think they go defensive interior. I don't think the guards are going to be players that they think are as valuable as this pick. They could go edge rusher here. That's my one blind spot on that pick. But I'll go with Woods to the Chargers. I'll go with Blake Miller to the Eagles at 23. They get a right tackle potentially for the future. If nothing else, they get some depth for this year, and hopefully he can settle into guard or tackle at some point soon. Monroe Freeling to the Browns. They get a developmental left tackle who might just be on the edge of becoming a great, great pro. So that's a great value. A lot of people would say that's a value pick for the Browns at 24. Caden McDonald to the Bears. I have 2 interior defensive guys going in the top 25 here. Right after I said that the defensive interior players are not rated as highly this year. They might go in the second round, but I have 2 of them going in the top 25. It's just how I think the draft will play out. I think you have to take each pick individually. You can't look at the whole draft and say, these guys are going to go up here, these guys are going to go down here. You need to go by every team's individual vibes and motives and needs. So that's why Caden McDonald goes to the Bears at 25, even though it's 5 or 10 picks higher than when some people might choose him. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren went to the Bills. They have a safety need. I really wanted to get them a receiver instead. Concepcion is usually who that is, but wasn't to be here. Then I have the Niners trading back and the Cardinals taking Ty Simpson. And I think that's a realistic outcome for this year's draft. The Cardinals ending up with Ty Simpson and his fifth-year option by trading up into the first. T.J. Parker to the Texans. I didn't want to force a player here, and I decided to go with strength on strength. They have a great pass rush and a great defense in general down in Houston. They can get interior defensive guys later, but we add a pass rusher here, which is just going to make them even scarier to play against. The Chiefs have Kenyon Sadiq fall in their lap. Again, this happens sometimes when I'm drafting for the Chiefs or for the entire first round, but I don't know. Some people aren't a believer in Sadiq. I don't know why he can't fall to the late first round. I've seen the Niners take him. I've seen the Chiefs take him, which they do here. So that adds a player that can possibly replace Kelsey, but give a little more juice in the pass-catching game. I really think they need that in front of Mahomes. Denzel Boston to the Dolphins. I really could have went corner here, but there's a lot of corner depth at this time in the draft, and the Dolphins pick again at 43. It's a little bit dangerous. It's a little bit dangerous only because. Well, let's see. It's a little bit dangerous because we don't pick again until 70. These are probably I would recommend these be two defensive backs. That's kind of the danger of going two offensive players to a team that could use a little bit of everything, because now they have to overcompensate a little bit at defensive back, but I think it's okay. I think the Dolphins have pretty much torn it down as far as they can without just people not showing up or buying tickets. So I think they could pretty much go best player available this year. And that's the road that this takes us, sort of. Or they can at least focus on one side of the ball. So I don't mind this for the Dolphins. The Patriots take a Iheanacho, right tackle for the future, like I said. And the Seahawks bolster that secondary where they lost some guys. They take Colton Hood. So I am medium happy with this. This will be my official mock draft. In other words, if I get a bunch right, I will be claiming that this is the mock that I went with. But seriously, though, this is the last one I'll be posting on YouTube. So I usually do pretty well at these, but this is a bad year for this to be the first one I post on YouTube, because I think this year is going to be crazy. I really don't think that anyone's going to be able to. I think if anyone gets more than 6 or 7 picks right, I think they just got lucky. I think this year is going to be total luck. Of course, if I get 15 right, I'm going to be saying none of it's luck and that I'm the best mock drafter in 2026. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a good night, and I'll see you next time. Let's see which ones of these comes true.